Here on Inside R&D, we've already seen how the gods use devotion to reward their followers. Now it's time to talk with the creative, design and development teams about the other signature mechanics that help make Theros a world teeming with gods, monsters and heroes.
One of the things I loved about Theros is that you had so many large creatures available to you, because often that is a hard thing. In Innistrad, we struggled with large green creatures, but here there's this wealth of, everything's big, everything feels mythic, everything feels monstrous, and then it was a nice companion to then you had the heroes that could kind of occupy the smaller range. So I actually found that to be an exciting thing about Theros is the wealth of amazingly large creatures that we got to play with.
In the movie, if you ever watched when the hero fights the monster, here's what happens. It happens in every movie. That they start fighting, the monster's winning early on. But then the hero comes back and he's able to beat the monster down, and the hero's like, I've done it. I've beaten the monster. But then no, the monster somehow gets better, or he gets bigger, or something happens, and the monster's like, oh, I wasn't really paying attention. Now I'm paying attention, and now the monster starts winning. And then eventually the hero is somehow able to defeat the monster. But we needed that moment. That there's a moment where the monster clearly like upgrades, they're there and it seems bad, but then wait a minute, I have extra arms or a bigger head or something. I did not give you my all, and now I'm giving you my all, and we wanted to capture that sense. So I said to my team, look, we need a monster mechanic. I wanted something that could take our monster and kind of level them up to the big bad, so that the hero, as the hero levels up, the monster could level up.
We wanted our monsters to be very threatening. There's all these stories about there's a giant monster ravaging the countryside, and the king would always call for a hero and say, hey, go deal with this thing. It's suicidally dangerous, you'll love it. And the hero goes off and battles the monster. But the monster needed to be threatening. And just having a creature there, it's a threat, but it doesn't have a sense of urgency the way the monstrous ability has. With the monstrous, in a couple of turns, they're going to have a couple of more lands, and that monstrous ability is going to be activated, and it's going to be devastating because it's always a huge, powerful ability.
So Monstrosity is a new keyword action appearing in Theros. It appears on what we call the monsters. Basically, it's the effect of an activated ability, so each one will have you pay some mana, and then you get to Monstrosity with a number, and that number is the number of +1/+1 counters that you put on the creature when that ability resolves. But there's a catch. Monstrosity also turns the creatures monstrous, which is a term that we use to describe basically a creature that has been, you've done the monstrosity thing. So you can only do it once. So once they're monstrous, they can't become monstrous again. So a lot of these creatures will have abilities that trigger when it becomes monstrous. And that's only going to trigger once unless that creature leaves the battlefield and comes back. Then it's a brand new creature, and you can monstrosity all over again.
So 100-handed one is a brilliant design. It is just hilarious that block 99 additional creatures. The funny thing is, in some formats, it's different that you can block 100 and not you can block any number.
And originally, it actually said it can block any number of creatures. And then we were in some meeting, and I don't remember who said it. We were in a design meeting. Someone said, they're joking around. Well, how about it blocks 99 additional creatures? And we all laugh, and then I go, you realize we're doing that.
One thing we came up with was the Shipbreaker Kraken. Release the Kraken, where the Kraken attacks and can actually hold people up in the air and incapacitate them while it breaks the ship.
I love when mechanics get to be flavorful, which is my job is to say, look, whatever the art is, whatever the names are, fine, we're going to do awesome stuff there, but I want the actual mechanics, as much as I possibly can, to themselves be flavorful.
Ember Swallower, to me, is one of the just most archetypal monstrous cards. The big problem that these kings had in classical times were these monsters that were just destroying the land. They were ravaging the land. And so a card that literally makes people sacrifice lands feels like the best expression of the ancient Greek giant monster that we can have here.
Innistrad had a dragon in it. And everyone was like, really? Gothic horror? I don't remember dragons in Gothic horror. Okay, we cheated. We put a dragon. People love dragons. It's a scary dragon, whatever. We cheated. So now comes Theros, and we preview. Okay, we're doing this dragon. They're like, again? They're like, no. There are dragons in Greek mythology.
Especially in Limited. this is a format where your monsters are going to get huge. Your heroes are going to get loaded up with their heroic bonuses, with auras, and you're going to have these huge heroes facing off against these huge monsters. And way more than most Magic sets, you're going to be smashing each other with these just huge guys, and it's awesome.
So the amazing thing about the heroic mechanic is that it really embodies the hero's journey that runs through myth. The idea that you start out and you're called, or a quest is presented to you, a problem that you have to overcome, and then you have to rise to the challenge.
So heroic is a new ability word that appears in Theros. It appears in front of triggered abilities of creatures, that when you cast a spell that targets them. Now this spell could be an instant or a sorcery or even an aura. A lot of people don't realize that auras do target the creatures when you cast them. So you get some bonus. A lot of the heroic abilities put +1/+1 counters on the creatures. A few of them have additional effects. So it's a way for these, heroic creatures, as it were, to rise up to meet the challenges of Theros.
So the heroes start out small. They're young Luke Skywalker on the farm in Tatooine, and as the game progresses, you target them with more and more auras and more giant growths, and whenever that happens, they get bigger, and they get bigger, and they get bigger until they are prepared to face the monster in battle and defeat it.
If you think of the labors of Hercules, each labor that he accomplished helped equip him for the next labor that he faced. And I think the heroic mechanic embodies that amazingly well and just contributes to the Greek feel of this set.
So we made a special case to split apart what we think were heroic triggers that made heroes that were fighting and heroes that did more mage-like abilities. So Labyrinth Champion is an example of a hero that is casting a spell every time that you use his heroic ability. We tried to do those in blue, a little bit in red, and tried to make the fighters in the other colors.
One of the aspects of the color wheel that development focuses on is that similar colors play differently. So green and white both get +1/+1 counters. The Phalanx leader we reduced to 2 mana, so it was really getting you to build a deck with a lot of creatures, with each one getting a +1/+1 counter. While the Centaur Battlemaster, that was just individually powerful. It gets 3 +1/+1 counters itself every time.
Heroes come in a wide range of looks and feels and strengths and attributes, and that's what we were trying to capture among creative and design and development, is the idea that a hero doesn't have to look a certain way. A hero doesn't have to solve a problem in a certain way. A hero can look very small and do something very clever, or a hero can be unexpected and tricky in the way that they, and that means there can be heroes in black. They have their own way of solving problems and overcoming obstacles and achieving their quest.
The best part about heroic is that it incentivizes you for doing the things that are awesome. You get to play all your combat tricks, you get to play auras, which are sometimes very clunky and limited, and they will power up your guy. And so when we were costing these, a lot of the time we had to think about how much value you're getting up front on your hero versus when you're able to get a lot of triggers and you're able to really power it up all the way through. Most of the time we ended up where targeting it once or twice, it's going to be over the curve and it's going to be a very efficient creature.
Experienced players know what you're supposed to do with giant growth is attack with your guy, they block, and you giant growth to kill your thing. A new player is going to just attack you and giant growth their guy and be like, take 3 more. That's not actually all that good, but the impulse to do that is there because it's fun to do stuff to your creatures and make them better. The idea behind heroic is that's fun. How can we make it right to have play patterns like that? Which, when I first saw this, I'm thinking to myself, I'm a strong Magic player. I know it's terrible to do this. Why are you trying to make me do this? And then it turns out it's actually fun. So I was kind of brought in kicking and screaming. It took us a lot of work to get all of this right. And in fact, heroic is the reason that Scry is in the set. When you have heroic as a thing that is creating variance because you have to play your creature pump spells and some creatures, there was too much variance in the set for what we want. We want there to be some variance, but there was so much because of how heroic works that we needed to add some kind of smoothing stuff, and that's why Eric decided to put Scry in the set in the end. That connection is not immediately obvious in hindsight, but adding Scry made everything better.
On Theros, enchantments are the magic of the gods. So when you use a bestow creature and enchant it onto one of your other creatures, to us that is the gods granting favor to your creature. You'll see that the bestow creatures and other enchantment creatures have this, we call it the Nyx Frame. Nyx is the realm of the gods, this kind of starry night look to it, and that helps you distinguish the divine magic of enchantments from mortals and their magic.
We certainly had some trouble figuring out what the power level of bestow was. It was, during design, we had one cost. You could either get a creature or you could get an aura that turned into a creature. So it was clear that we didn't quite have a handle on the implications of what this mechanic could do. It was, I believe Eric Lauer suggested, hey, let's have two costs because one of these is just way better than the other. And we went with that, and it made the whole thing a lot better, I have to say.
We added a bestow cost that cost more. So you'd have to choose, do I want to play this early and get a creature out of it, or do I want to wait and bestow, get the bonus, and later down the line get another creature, a form of card advantage?
Bestow has a lot of moving parts. And one of the ways that we made it simpler is that we set some rules for ourselves. And this is going to be true through the entire block. Every bestow card that you see, it's a creature. The bonus it gives to creatures that it enchants is going to be the same as the power and toughness that's printed on the card. And the things that it will give to the creatures it enchants are going to be the same thing that it has itself.
You've got a creature or an aura that'll fall off and become a creature. It's a little bit complex, so we had to really focus on making the commons very straightforward effects. The blue Nimbus Naiad grants flying, the white one grants vigilance, and they all are very flat bonuses. They're always the same power and toughness, so you can just look at it there on the battlefield and you know exactly how much of a bonus your creature has.
The Boon Satyr is there to really give an efficient creature that can be bestowed. There's 3 ways to play this, really. You can just flash it out at the end of your opponent's turn or during combat as a 4/2. You can bestow it on your creature in the middle of combat to hit hard, or you can block with a creature and bestow to pick off an attacker, and then on your turn smash it.
When you have a set that has a lot of themes in it, you've got enchantment creatures, you've got heroic creatures, you've got monstrosity creatures, you've got devotion. So there's a lot of stuff going on. How do you make it all mesh together? The thing that actually sticks everything together the best is the bestow mechanic, where you can enchant your heroes. You're targeting them with a spell. They actually have a heroic bonus. You're putting more permanents on the battlefield. Your things that like enchantments, like your bestow cards. They're creatures themselves. They can attack and block if you have nothing else to do. They have colored mana symbols on them. They're turning your devotion on. So everything works when you have a glue piece like the bestow mechanic to bring it all together.
Richard Garfield in Alpha made creature enchantments. They were always beloved, but in the early days they were weak. Mostly because of card disadvantage. The idea that I could pay mana, get this thing, but all they have to do is destroy my creature, and then I lose also the aura as well as the creature. And even if I go to put the aura on the creature and then destroy the creature, then the aura also goes away. So you got 2 for 1, as they say a lot. So we spent a lot of time historically over the history of design. Like, we had in Mirage, we had auras that you could cast as instants. They kind of doubled as instants as well as being auras. And then in Tempest, we had flickering auras so that you could take them, you could put them back in your hand. So if you saw that something would get destroyed, you could return them so you didn't lose them. In Urza Saga block, we made the Wrinkle-like mechanics where when it died, it went back to your hand. Like you couldn't even lose it. And so we keep messing around. We've made auras that when it dies, you get something. Ravnica had auras that you got something else when you played them. We definitely had auras where the Umbras, where when it went away, then you got the creature, and that we keep trying to find different ways to just make auras better. So in some ways, Bestow is kind of the end, or maybe we'll keep going, but Bestow is definitely like, you can't be 2 for 1. There is no way to be 2 for 1. Even if they bolt your creature as you're playing it, it just looks around and goes, no creature? Oh, I'm a creature. Even then, it just comes to play as a creature. So there's no way to actually 2 for 1 with this thing. And one of the best things about it is you put it on the creature dies, and then now it's a creature, so now you get this extra bonus out of it, And so I feel like Bestow really is us saying, look guys, we want you to play auras. They're good. Just play them.
While heroes may call out for divine intervention against their monstrous foes, for a chosen few, legendary status is already assured. In Part 3, we'll meet some of the great characters, old and new, ready to make their mark on Theros.